Tonight on Primetime News, the White House says it may have lost the battle, but not the war, after the House turns a cold shoulder on aid to the Contras. Winter Carnival folks say they won't turn their backs on the Torchlight Parade, no matter how cold it gets. We'll have a look at the downside of the Twin Cities downtown development.
From the Twin Cities, this is the Upper Midwest first look at tonight's news. This is Primetime News.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Heather Harden.
And I'm Rod Grams. Thanks for joining us tonight. Well, it's the cold weather that tops our news tonight.
The second bitter cold wave of the season is pushing out of Canada and across Minnesota tonight and could bring with it some of the coldest temperatures of the winter and wind chills that could pose real problems for any outdoor activities.
Meteorologist Joe Dandrea is joining us now with the latest on what we can expect. Joe?
Well, Heather and Rod, it certainly isn't like we haven't had this kind of weather before. We certainly have here across the upper Midwest, but it can be very dangerous, especially if you have exposed flesh when the wind chill values get down around 50 and 60 below zero, and we do expect that to happen a little bit later on tonight. The National Weather Service has issued, as you can see, wind chill advisories for most of the Dakotas, all of Minnesota, as well as northern Iowa for tonight, and actually right through the day tomorrow, wind chill values down to 60 below in the southern portion of Minnesota and 60 to 80 below across much of North Dakota and in through the northern portions of Minnesota. Also, a blowing snow advisory is out because of the strong winds and the loose snow on the ground in the northwestern quarter of Minnesota. Of course, we'll have a complete update coming up later on in the newscast. Back to you, Rod and Heather.
Okay, thank you very much, Joe. Well, that Siberian Express is facing off with a torchlight parade, and the forecast is not good.
Winter Carnival folks are wrestling with what to do. The highlight of the celebration of the season is being threatened by the season, putting a chill on Torchlight Parade plans. Maureen Reeder has the bitter cold facts.
You've heard the prediction. Saturday night, Torchlight Parade night. Temperatures around 5 below zero. Wind chill perhaps 36 below.
How about the coldest air mass in about 3 years moving into the Twin Cities?
20 and below, there is a danger of frostbite, and certainly anything below 5 to 15 degrees Fahrenheit, there's a significant danger of frostbite.
But the wind chill may be a bigger factor.
When you get 30 below, there's simply a very high risk of injury to any exposed part. That can include the corneas of your eyes, and as well as your cheeks and things that are hard to cover up.
The chances are too great, says this North St. Paul Tartan High School marching band director. Aside from the difficulties of playing with frozen instruments and cold mouthpieces, he must consider the safety of his band. He says he'd never forgive himself if one band member lost a toe or an ear to frostbite. Unless there's a heat wave, his and several other bands won't march.
It's dangerous now, I think, in terms of the possibility of injury to the kids. And being a high school, we can't run that risk. You know, we've got to put safety first.
That decision does come with some regret.
You know, you don't want to be accused of being a wimp or anything like that, but I would feel real bad if the headlines the next day in the paper said North St. Paul Tartan High School bands rushed students into the hospital with frostbite injuries.
What a dilemma for parade officials who still intend to go forward with their plans.
We understand the decision by some of the bands and the band directors and the administrations of the school that if it's too cold, it's too much exposure for the kids. We understand that. We think it's unfortunate, but there's really nothing we can do.
The Torchlight Parade has been canceled before, 11 years ago, but this year so much more has been dedicated to this parade, both in terms of man-hours and dollars. Canceling the parade now would be very expensive to the Winter Carnival.
There's talent coming in for the parade that we're flying in or that Kara's flying in for the weekend. We can't go back on that. We have a dinner for all the sponsors Saturday night that we're going to have regardless of whether there's a parade or not. It'll cost, yeah, it'll cost. Sure.
Just how much it'll cost, no one wants to say. They don't plan to postpone this parade. For the first time, the parade is being sponsored by Care TV, which will televise the event, so will WCCO TV. Does that add pressure to go ahead with plans?
I personally am not feeling any pressure from either of the TV stations, and I don't think our executive committee or the board or the volunteers or anyone is feeling pressure to run the parade. We just very much want to run the parade.
Officials clearly want the parade on Saturday night because of tradition, because it's a celebration of winter. Maureen Reeder, Channel 9 News.
And so, reluctantly, parade officials will take a fresh look at the forecast tomorrow and give the final word on the fate of the parade. They should have a decision by noon. And in other news tonight, the rumblings from last night's Contra aid defeat in Washington are still being felt tonight.
White House spokesman Marlin Fitzwater describes the president as being deeply disappointed that the House failed to pass his $36 million rebel aid package. And Fitzwater says the president is warning Nicaragua to keep its promises to become more democratic. We get more tonight from Frank Sesno at the White House.
As the president left a National Prayer Day breakfast, he was asked Washington's question of the hour.
President, what are you going to do about the conflict, sir?
Spokesman Marlin Fitzwater quoted Mr. Reagan as saying he was deeply disappointed by the House vote rejecting further Contra aid.
He believes this action undercuts the efforts of those brave men and women at a critical juncture in the Central American peace process.
The White House promptly began consultations to determine its next step. For now, officials say it's wait and see what the Sandinistas do and what House Democrats do. They say they'll propose a humanitarian aid-only Contra package. But Fitzwater reserved the administration's right to try again for military aid. He says the Contras will start feeling the pinch within weeks of the last permitted U.S. arms shipment at the end of this month. Contra leaders who met with Secretary of State Schultz were defiant.
We've been through this before. We've managed to survive. We will survive again. We're going to keep on fighting.
We can last through March at the actual level of operations.
Though somewhat of an anticlimax, the Senate began debate on the Contra aid request, even though the House vote effectively killed it.
The House vote gives us a chance to end a dark chapter in American history and to open a bright new chapter of cooperation and peace.
We are on the verge, after 9 years of lies by the Sandinistas, of cutting off aid and snuffing out the last light of freedom in Nicaragua.
Vice President Bush returned from campaigning in Iowa in case of a tie.
We're so close in the House that who knows what will happen as a result of a good showing here.
With memories of the Iran-Contra affair still fresh, Reagan aides say the administration will, of course, abide by the will of Congress. But in Fitzwater's words, the president will always be looking for ways to help the Contras. Frank Sesno, CNN, the White House.
And within the hour, the Senate has taken its vote on the president's Contra aid request. It has gone on record as favoring the aid package. The vote, however, was close, 51 to 48. Because of yesterday's House defeat, however, the Senate vote is purely symbolic and has no binding effect.
Meanwhile, in Managua, the pro-government news media are hailing the House vote. State-run radio is calling the Contras to lay down their arms, but a government newspaper is also saying the Reagan administration is planning new forms of aggression. Minnesota's congressional delegation voted right along party lines in last night's Contra aid vote.
And what Minnesota lawmakers had to say about the plan pretty much echoed the reaction on the rest of Capitol Hill. Polly Kreischen reports from Washington.
On this vote, the yeas are 211 and the nays are 219. The resolution is not agreed to.
During 12 hours of debate Wednesday with the rest of the Minnesota delegation divided along party lines, Bloomington Republican Bill Frenzel finally decided to vote yes.
I would have been happier if this bill had had only humanitarian aid.
Frenzel's decision to vote for aid to the Contras came with a last-minute phone call from Ronald Reagan and a promise by the president in his Tuesday night speech.
And it was a positive change as far as I'm concerned because it gave Congress the right to veto the shipment of ammunition had the president recommended it.
On the other side of the aisle, Martin Sabo says his anti-Reagan vote finds wide support in Minneapolis.
In my district, there was very, very little support for any additional funding for the Contras, and that represents the entire cross-section of the political viewpoint from liberal to conservative.
If one looked only at the votes cast by the 8-member Minnesota delegation, one could almost have predicted Wednesday night's vote. The 5-3 split is considered a microcosm of the way continued aid to the Contras is viewed by the entire House of Representatives. Even though the House rendered the Contra aid bill dead, the Senate is voting on it tonight as a matter of course. With Minnesota's delegation split down the middle, Senator Durenberger opposing the aid and Senator Boschwitz in favor, Minnesota may again give us some insight into the overall vote. Polly Kreisman, Channel 9 News, Washington.
Oliver North is making headlines again. The New York Times and the Washington Post say that he made plans with Panamanian strongman Manuel Noriega to help the Contras and frame the Nicaraguan government. A former top aide to Noriega tells of a plan to ship East Bloc weapons to rebels in El Salvador, sieve them before arrival, and make it look like the Nicaraguans were involved. Those plans were allegedly made while North was working for the National Security Council. Sources in Miami say the U.S. Attorney's Office plans to seek a drug trafficking indictment against Noriega, and those charges could be announced as early as tomorrow. Noriega has repeatedly denied any link to the drug trade.
Still to come tonight, an apparent guerrilla attack in the Middle East.
Also tonight, some of the high-tech mysteries of the silver screen are exposed in a new exhibit at the Science Museum of Minnesota. The stories and more coming up next.
For a limited time only at your Twin Cities area Toyota dealer, the spotlight's on super savings. Hundreds of the Twin Cities' #1 selling import must be sold. We're making super deals. Every new vehicle on the lot is priced to save you money. Plus, save on extra value packages from Camrys to trucks. Save hundreds on great options like air, power steering, stereo. Hundreds of great deals. Hundreds in savings. But not much time to cash in. Spotlight on savings ends very soon. See your Twin Cities area Toyota dealers now.
Now you can have fast, convenient, and accurate one-stop computer-generated tax return service at TaxHelp. TaxHelp offers the latest in tax service computer technology with laser-printed returns, a free cup of coffee, and fast, friendly service. TaxHelp. Call 770-3065 for an appointment or stop in at 3000 White Bear Avenue. Make your TaxHelp appointment today.
Make-A-Wish of Minnesota grants wishes to children who are fighting terminal illnesses. These children have dreams of a trip to Disneyland, a new bike, or just a weekend away from the hospital.
You can help fulfill those dreams. Just visit your grocery store from now until the end of February and purchase the participating items. You'll be helping to raise money for Make-A-Wish.
Look for this ad in Sunday or Wednesday's newspapers.
Stock up and help make wishes come true.
New customers will come into the store and they're really surprised at the different lines that we have. It's not just nuts and bolts.
Save during our famous brand sale on Memorex 90-minute cassette tapes. Lifelike quality, only $4.95 for 5 tapes. Get this Casio 10-digit printing calculator. Uses regular calculator paper. Only $29.99 at your hometown coast-to-coast store.
America's Total Hardware Stores, coast to coast.
In what is being called an unprecedented move, the city of Minneapolis today bought Cedar Square West from the U.S. Housing and Urban Development Agency. It is the first time a city has been able to buy a project. The price, $15 million, plus another $7.5 million that must be put into repairing the building. The agreement was signed today in Washington, ending a year of litigation over the largest housing project in default in HUD history. The city of Minneapolis will now sell the building to a consortium of developers who will do the required repairs. The city had fought to get the project to preserve the availability of low and middle-income housing. Well, it happened in Minneapolis last year. Now it's happening in St. Paul.
The city's plans for new development are taking away some old jobs. Susan Austin has that story.
In an effort to beautify the riverfront, the city of St. Paul has purchased 2 companies along Shepherd Road, Kaplan Scrap Metal and Harvest States, a grain elevator business. 10 grain millers with 25 to 37 years in the company will be out of a job this April. Many of the 28 workers here at Kaplan are already laid off. Those left are clearing out the yard and wondering about their future.
Perhaps somewhere along the line, I'll find a job somewhere.
A steady job that pays more than $10 an hour is tough to replace. The city is offering to retrain the workers for new jobs and has secured a $25,000 grant to do so. But many workers at both plants are older and ready to retire.
I'll be 60 years old in May, so it's a little late for me to start back to school.
Even the young guys worry, but for different reasons.
When you go and you're trying to start over from the bottom and work your way up, at our age is gonna be hard.
These workers aren't alone. Last fall in Minneapolis, 120 bakers at Continental Bakery lost their jobs because the city needed a new convention center. Getting laid off in the name of progress seems to be a growing trend.
Redevelopment of St. Paul, particularly from some of the commercial areas, is a vital and ongoing activity of the city which can't be abandoned for the future economic health and the future long-term job potential of St. Paul.
Despite efforts to retrain workers, labor groups say the city has shown little concern for their welfare.
The question is, what jobs are going to be out there for those workers once they've gone through retraining?
Drent Law and other union leaders are planning to meet with city officials next week. They hope to convince the city to prepare job impact statements before committing public funds for redevelopment.
There's going to be a lot of need out there for workers when they're displaced and they can't find other comparable jobs. And it's the taxpayers that are ultimately going to have to bear that burden.
Susan Austin, Channel 9 News.
Efforts to get colleges to dump their South African investments have been dealt a blow. A Michigan appeals court has overturned the nation's first law forcing colleges to divest. The judges ruled it violated the school's constitutional autonomy. The case involved the University of Michigan, which objected to being ordered to sell off stock in South African firms.
The Israeli army says 2 soldiers and a Palestinian guerrilla died in fighting today after guerrillas slipped across the border from Lebanon.
The main faction of the Palestinian Liberation Organization is claiming responsibility for the raid. Israel says the guerrillas had planned to take hostages and demand that Israeli forces get out of the occupied territories.
Israeli Prime Minister Yitzhak Shamir toured a pair of refugee camps in the occupied Gaza Strip today and promised to improve living conditions. It was the first visit by an Israeli prime minister to a Gaza camp. But in the West Bank, the violence continued. Amidst scattered fighting, Israeli troops wounded a Palestinian protester in a refugee camp.
In the Persian Gulf War, Iraq says its warplanes have attacked a tanker off the coast of Iran. There's no verification of that claim, but shipping executives say another ship has sunk in the Gulf. It is the Panamanian-flagged tanker that was attacked by Iranian gunboats on Saturday.
She did something because I did something. And I did something because she did something because I did something. I mean, you ask her, she'll tell you one thing, and I'll tell you another.
Traffic is a battle. We provide the air cover. For John Lundell and Dean Spratt on traffic, turn to WCCO Radio 830.
I got a different kind of face, a different kind of smile.
No matter how different you are, Pearl has a frame to fit your style. Right now, save on fashionable frames such as Halston, Christian Dior, and Evan Picone. And save an additional $25 with the Pearl coupon.
I got a different kind of style.
Look for the coupon and details in the February Family Circle and the February 6th TV Guide.
Oh, yeah.
At your friendly Red Owl store, it's easy to reach for the stars. Like Palmolive regular or lemon lime, 22-ounce size, 89 cents. Palmolive softens your hands while you do the dishes. Totino's tempting topping pizza with Totino's original crisp crust, 11 ounces and up, $1.19. Plus special prices on a whole bonanza of good things from Betty Crocker and General Mills. Star grocery buys this week at your friendly Red Owl store.
Walgreens won't let your pictures come out too blue, or too green, or too red. Walgreens uses the Kodak Color Watch system exclusively so that your pictures come out color perfect. And now with Walgreens Match 2 game, you can win $10,000 in gold and other prizes. Free game card inside every Walgreens photo envelope. Vident Oral Rinse and Vident Toothpaste, one of the best plaque fighting systems you can buy, is available at Walgreens.
Quite a sight, isn't it? A good, clean crop I can really take pride in. And here's the help you need to get it. Prowl. It gives you clean corn with full season control of foxtail, woolly cupgrass, and velvet leaf. In fact, Prowl tank mixed with atrazine is tough on a number of problem weeds and grasses. And I can put it down pre-emerge or early post-emerge. So to produce a healthy crop like this, start with Prowl, and you'll finish with pride.
Get Prowl from your local AgriCenter dealer.
The Congressional Budget Office is predicting a lot more government red ink in the fiscal year 1989 than the administration is predicting. Capitol Hill sources say the CBO is projecting a $176 billion deficit next year. The administration's estimate is about $40 billion lower. The sources say the congressional agency thinks economic growth will be slower and interest rates will be higher than the administration is predicting.
Tonight in business, some of America's largest retailers had a lackluster month in January. Analysts say they are not concerned with the low numbers because January is traditionally a low month for shopping. However, Dayton-Hudson Corporation says overall net retail sales for January increased nearly 20% over a year ago, but that was mainly due to a 28% jump in sales at their Target stores. The Dayton-Hudson department store had a decrease in net retail sales. The state of Minnesota recorded a positive trade balance during the first 10 months of 1987, according to the state planning agency. Minnesota ranked higher than all Great Lakes and Midwestern states except Michigan in per capita exports. However, the State Department of Trade and Economic Development says the state's economy is too vulnerable to changes in the world computer market because computers dominate the state's exports. Computers account for 53% of Minnesota's manufactured goods. The next largest exporter is the artillery industry, which accounts for nearly 6%. A report says slower demand worldwide for computers as well as competition from Japan could have a disproportionate effect on the state's economy. A national study shows that housing prices in the Twin Cities rose dramatically during the past 10 years. Their rate surpassed only by New York City. That makes the Twin Cities market one of the most expensive metro areas for home buyers. The study showed Twin Cities home prices up 34% in 10 years, but New York's prices rose 68%, and that's quite a difference. On the New York Stock Exchange today, Cap Cities ABC, Federated Department Stores, and American Standard were up. Down were General Ray, Crown Cork, and Monsanto. On the regional boards, CVN, Winnebago, and Nicollet were down. Munsingware were up, Munsingware, Tonka, and Minnetonka were down. The Dow Jones closed down just a point at 1923 on fairly heavy trading of 186 million shares. After 15 years of being pigeonholed as a magazine for working feminists, Ms. Magazine came out with a new look this month. The result of the work of a new editor. She joins us tonight. Ann Summers comes to Ms. Magazine from Australia, where she was an author. She's been a reporter covering women's issues on the political and the news scene in Australia. I think our viewers would be interested to know, though, that you used to live for a while in St. Paul. Share with us what you did there.
It was 10 years ago. I was here at Macalester College, the World Press Institute, which is a program for foreign journalists, and I was lucky enough to be selected that year as one of the journalists on that program, and I spent 5 months living in the Twin Cities and got to know the area quite well.
And it's nice to have you back.
Thank you.
We're going to be showing our viewers a videotape of the new look of the magazine while we ask you some questions about it. And why did you feel, when you and your company took over the magazine, that it needed a new look? What was wrong with the old Ms., if you will?
We've tried to retain the best of the old Ms. It's going to stay a feminist magazine, though not one that's going to be hitting people over the heads with heavy ideas.
Do you think that was one of its flaws in the past? It was a
lot of people stopped reading Ms. A lot of women who used to read it stopped reading the magazine because they felt it no longer addressed the issues that concerned them. It had failed to grow with them. But the main reason we changed the look and we've introduced a larger size and a new design is that readers were writing to us in great volumes saying they didn't like the old design. We wanted to give people a magazine that they enjoyed reading, aesthetically as well as intellectually, if you like.
Do you think that feminists, if you will, have changed from this time to the early 70s, and is that one of the reasons why you've made some changes?
Yes, I think feminists have changed, the women's movement's changed, women have changed, the world has changed. This is a very different place in the late 1980s from the early 1970s when Ms. was first established. I think that we no longer go marching up and down the street to achieve our goals. We're much more likely to lobby politicians, raise money, try and elect candidates that are sympathetic to the goals that we have in mind. I think our mood is different and we've become more pragmatic, and Ms. needs to reflect that.
Now, you mentioned politics. We couldn't help but notice in this first issue a much greater proportion of the pages are devoted to politics. Why is that?
Well, Ms. was unable to cover politics in any significant way because they were owned by a tax-exempt, not-for-profit foundation, and the federal regulations governing such bodies prevents taking sides and expressing political opinions. Now, we no longer have that constraint, and so we're able to express opinions, and we do. We've rated all of the candidates for the presidential election. There's 13 of them at the moment, so it's just a very preliminary assessment. But as the race develops and as the field narrows,
you'll make a pick.
We certainly will.
Thank you, Ann. We'll watch for that.
Thank you.
Now we'll go back to Rod.
Thank you, Heather. He was the first black American to rise up through the ranks of the U.S. Army to become a general. His name, Benjamin Oliver Davis. Here's John Hurst Adams with tonight's Black History Minute.
The first black American to become a general in the United States Army was Benjamin Oliver Davis, Sr. His career spanned 50 years. General Davis joined the Army in 1898. Although promotions for blacks were rare, He rose through the ranks until he became a full colonel in 1930. He was promoted to brigadier general in 1940 and supervised integration policy in Europe during World War II. Among General Davis's many decorations are the Distinguished Service Medal, the Bronze Star, and the French Cross. I'm Bishop John Adams, remembering General Benjamin O. Davis, Sr., and celebrating a great moment in our history.
I'm Kevin Burns at the Minneapolis Auditorium, where tonight progress has put a chokehold on a sports institution. I'll have a live report when Primetime News continues.
Well, what can we do for you?
My name is John, and I'd like to employ.
When you go to some banks to borrow money, the way you're treated is almost criminal.
What do you want the money for?
Well, I'd like to buy a...
What makes you think we should give you the money?
Well, I thought you were the ones who had it. What is this?
Just sign it.
What?
Escape to TCF. We'll give you an answer within 8 hours on all kinds of loans.
How long will it take? We'll get back to you.
Lincoln Mercury announces up to $1,000 customer cash on Mercury Cougar and Sable. Now, save $1,610 on Mercury Sable with a popular equipment package and customer cash. Save $1,551 on Mercury Cougar with a popular equipment package and customer cash. Or get $500 customer cash on Mercury Tracer. But hurry, customer cash is a limited offer on the shapes you want to be in. See your Lincoln Mercury dealer today.
Yesterday, Liz Garland bicycled 20 miles. Today, she'll pay for it.
Boy, what did I do?
That's why her next move is to Metaprin. Metaprin contains the same medicine as Motrin, and nothing's proven faster for relief of body aches, muscle pain, or any kind of pain. It's also gentler to your stomach than aspirin. Metaprin works fast when you haven't got time for the pain.
Pacific Pool and Patio is having its gigantic 8th annual warehouse and floor model clearance sale. Beautiful all-slate pool tables set up and delivered starting at only $799. Over 250 tables in stock. Spas featuring the famous Beachport spas. Quality at its peak. 100% financing available on your spa choice today. Over 200 spas in stock. Stop in at any one of our 4 Twin Cities locations today.
Well, it looks a bit tenuous for the parade right now, Joe.
Exactly, but Heather, right now it looks like the worst of the cold weather, at least as of the latest information. Looks like the worst of the cold weather will be moving through tomorrow and tomorrow night, with those wind chills down around 60 degrees below zero. And then after that, it looks like we're going to start to warm things up a little bit, just a bit for the parade, but as you said, Heather, we're still not really sure whether it'll be warm enough to go ahead with that parade. The wind chill values around the region right now certainly are anything but warm. 40 to 60 degree below zero readings as of 8 o'clock. Over northwestern Minnesota and eastern North Dakota, 20 to 40 below zero already over the rest of the region, with the exception of eastern Wisconsin, where wind chills are now running just a bit below zero. Let's check out our statistics for today here in the Twin Cities area. Certainly not a balmy one, but at least above zero at 5 degrees, and the low last night was only 0. 22 and 20 are the averages for the state, and with that bit of snow this morning, the airport reported 0.6 of an inch. Sunrise tomorrow, 7:29 a.m. Currently, the skies are clear. Our temperature is at, that should read 3 degrees below zero. The wind chill index is now obviously a lot colder than that. We're about 36 below, and those currents don't look right to me at all. Maybe we better just go ahead and see what's happening around the 5-state region. Here we have it. The current temperatures range from, about 18 degrees below zero, way up at Williston, North Dakota, to 9 below at Grand Forks, Fargo, 12 below International Falls, below zero all the way down into northern Iowa, where it's about 6 below at Mason City, and then we rise above zero slightly with 3 degrees at Dubuque and about 10 degrees reported for the warm spot at Milwaukee, Wisconsin. Our satellite picture this evening shows that skies are basically clear over much of Minnesota. We have another minor disturbance moving through northeastern Minnesota, heading for northern Wisconsin, maybe a few flurries associated with that. But the storm center that brought us the snow is now centered in the western part of lower Michigan, still producing some snow across Michigan, rapidly moving away from us. What you're seeing here is the edge of a giant area of high pressure that's way up in the northwestern part of Alberta, Canada, and it's ridging south and eastward into the Dakotas right now. Another disturbance is sliding south and east and will miss Minnesota, heading down into Nebraska and southern Iowa, where they could see a few snow flurries tomorrow. But you can also see the packing of the pressure lines, and that means strong and gusty winds coming directly out of the central portions of Canada. So temperatures will be very cold later tonight and also during the day tomorrow. We do not expect temperatures to rise above zero. On the national picture, you can see a little swirl of clouds still moving through the northeast that dumped up to a foot of snow in some portions of New England. That's beginning to wind down and move out into the Atlantic Ocean. But another huge area of moisture has now moved into the southern part of the United States, and that's beginning to produce a mess down in portions of Texas. They're reporting some rain, some freezing rain, and some snow in the Texas Panhandle right now. Some light snow in portions of Montana and western South Dakota, and still a few snow showers left across the northeast. Otherwise, much of the nation is dried out, at least for the time being. High temperatures today, very warm again to the south and east, 70s and 80s throughout much of Florida. 72 degrees reported at Palm Springs in Southern California. But here's the air mass we're going to be in for the next day or so. Teens, 20 below highs, and that'll be charging in a southeasterly direction. The weather map for tomorrow, again, shows the extent of that large area of high pressure, extending all the way down, ridging all the way down to the southern part of Texas, even though the center will be way up in the southern portion of Alberta. We do expect it to slide south and east of the area tomorrow night, though, and that could allow a little bit of warming in here for Saturday. As you can see, there'll be a little bit of light snow through the Great Lakes region, snow and rain in Texas. Otherwise, much of the rest of the nation will be dry, but it's going to be plenty cold. Our forecast here in the Twin Cities, bitterly cold tonight. That wind chill advisory out 12 to 18 degrees below zero by morning, but that's with a northwest wind at 12 to 22 miles an hour. For tomorrow, it'll be sunny and windy, highs of 3 to 8 below, northwest winds 15 to 30, keeping those wind chills down around 40 degrees or 50 degrees below zero during the day tomorrow. Tomorrow night, it'll be clear, breezy, bitterly cold, 15 to 20 below. And then we're going to start to moderate things a little bit. Winds turn into the west, but still at 10 to 20 and 0 to 5 above. So your wind chills there, you're still looking at wind chills around 30 degrees below zero. So it's still going to be touch and go, even if it's slightly above zero.
But hopefully it's pushing out quickly.
Yeah, it looks like it's going to move out more quickly than we thought right now.
All right. Thank you, Joe. Well, this just in tonight in North Minneapolis, what looks like another crack house bust. Neighbors next to 1111 Logan Avenue North say police broke through a high wire fence surrounding the outside of the house, broke through upstairs windows, and then went in armed. Police are releasing no information, however, regarding this incident. We'll have more as it becomes available. Well, still to come tonight, the FBI finds one of its 10 most wanted in an unusual hideout. An Amtrak collides with a freight train in Omaha.
Also, the making of movies, some high-tech animation, and a homegrown production. We'll have more when we return.
Come to Copy Duplicating Products in Bloomington this Saturday, February 6th for Channel 9's Twinsmobile Sweepstakes. Register for prizes and see the World Championship Trophy at Copy Duplicating Products in Bloomington this Saturday.
Remco wants you, Ruth Werfel, to own this new refrigerator you need.
I can't afford this.
With Remco, you can afford it. You want to own, right?
Yeah.
Remco's helped hundreds of thousands of people just like you own. We make owning easy, like with affordable payment plans. You don't just rent, you rent to own.
Then I'm taking my new refrigerator home.
TVs, stereos, appliances, furniture. It's all within your reach at Remco. Call now.
Hold it, ho, ho, ho. So you're going to finally meet Cindy, huh? Tonight. Good. So first impressions are very important. I think. Okay. Now, imagine. Lights are low, the music's soft. Knock the door opens up. Somebody's out there doing this.
What is this? She's got dandruff?
No, you have dandruff.
No.
Yes, you do.
I shampoo every day.
You can shampoo your brains out with regular shampoo. Wouldn't matter.
Your brains out?
Yeah, well, so use that.
Head and Shoulders?
Works for me, my friend.
But you don't have dandruff.
Exactamundo!
Head and Shoulders, because you never get a second chance to make a first impression.
If you're looking for the only family wagon that gives you front-wheel drive, an available overhead cam fuel-injected V6, a choice of long or short wheelbase, and an unbeatable 770 protection plan, then look no further. It's gotta be the best-selling family wagon in the world, the unequaled Dodge Caravan.
With prices starting as low as $10,887, you've got to see your local Dodge dealer.
Adventure is his middle name.
You've been recruited by an organization that doesn't exist.
And with the proper training,
you are here to conquer your childish fear of heights.
he'll be our last hope for freedom.
When will he be ready?
Ahead of time, I think.
America, meet your latest and greatest hero.
Those guys tried to kill me. You want more?
Joel Gray and Fred Ward as Remo Williams. The adventure begins.
Friday at 7 on Receptive Channel 9.
And we have more tonight, what appears to look like another crack house bust in North Minneapolis. Again, neighbors next to 1111 Logan Avenue North say police broke through a high wire fence surrounding the outside of the house, then broke through upstairs windows and went into the house armed.
I don't know. They was tearing the windows out and we had left because we was going somewhere and we seen them up in the shovel.
What were they using?
A tractor. We couldn't see, it was dark, but we seen them in the tractor up at the top floor window.
Well, what do you know about that house?
Nothing really, but I assume it must be a dope house. There's up there.
And again, police are releasing no further information regarding the incident.
More lawsuits have been filed in connection with the Mounds View pipeline explosion in 1986. 22 of the adjacent property owners have banded together to sue the Williams Pipeline Company. The homeowners claim their property values have been hurt by the explosion. Earlier this week, 2 other couples also sued Williams Pipeline for property damage connected to the disaster.
Officials say 13 people suffered minor injuries this morning when an Amtrak train and a freight train collided near Omaha, Nebraska. About 2,000 gallons of diesel fuel spilled. The spill was contained and there was no danger of fire. One of the nearly 200 passengers on the Chicago-bound train says that it's a good thing they weren't going very fast. As to what caused the accident, officials aren't talking, but an Amtrak ticket agent says he thinks the passenger train didn't stop when it should have. A judge in Bhopal has summoned the former chairman and other top officials of Union Carbide to India. The Carbide spokesman won't speculate on how the company might react to the order. All those named in the summons have been charged with responsibility for the 1984 gas leak from a Union Carbide plant that killed more than 2,000 people.
The FBI has found one of its 10 most wanted criminals just where it wants him, in jail. A fingerprint check revealed that self-described mountain man Darren O'Neill has been in a Louisiana jail since December. He'd given authorities a phony name. O'Neill is wanted in Washington State on a murder charge. Any speculation about the future political plans of Hubert Humphrey III will be put to rest later this month. The Minnesota Attorney General will formally declare his candidacy for the U.S. Senate February 16th in the state capitol rotunda, the first stop of a 3-day, 9-city tour of the state. Humphrey, a DFLer, will be seeking the seat formerly held by his father and mother and now held by Republican Dave Durenberger. He says, now is the time to change the priorities of our government, and I want to help lead the fight.
Actor Clint Eastwood, meanwhile, is hanging up his gavel and getting out of politics. He's decided not to run for another term as mayor of the scenic Carmel by the Sea in California. Eastwood said that he's enjoyed being mayor, but he wants to spend more time now with his teenage sons. He's not, however, ruling out the possibility of getting back into politics later on. Well, sort of a movie premiere in Minneapolis tonight. The movie Patty Rocks was made in Minnesota and was unveiled to a local audience tonight after good reviews on each coast.
Patty Rocks generated a lot of controversy because of its coarse language in depicting the attitude of men toward women and one woman's response.
Tonight, Steve Goodspeed takes a look at the movie and the hopes it presents, that is, for local filmmakers.
I mean, whenever you're horny, you just pay for sex once or twice a week. That way you don't have to have somebody around, 7 days a week, 24 hours a day. You don't have to feed and clothe them, medical and doctor bills, shoes for the kids. It's the only way.
Patty Rocks, real people, at times raunchy. Life is not pretty, and everyone does not live happily ever after. It is the kind of movie that director, co-writer, and St. Paul native David Morris says Hollywood would not touch with a 10-foot pole.
Our first screening, they were yelling and throwing things at the screen the first half because of the things Billy said about women. And at the end, they start cheering when Patty starts kicking butt on the two guys. But I wanted to make a picture that people couldn't forget, that would rile up a lot of emotions, and it has.
Morris is moving back to the Twin Cities after 12 years in California. Patty Rocks was his third film shot in Minnesota, using the acting, talent, locations, and production facilities here. There are signs the movie industry finds some of what it likes here. Far North was filmed in the Duluth area with Jessica Lange. Part of Prince's Sign of the Times was filmed at his local facility, Paisley Park. There are several others. Greg Cummins shot and edited Patty Rocks, and now heads a group of local film enthusiasts trying to develop the industry, and part of their job is getting some respect for local work.
That really is a strong attitude here. I mean, that everything from either coast is better.
There they all were, the wives, overweight, with curlers in their hair, chucking stuff into their baskets to kill their husbands with. And the husbands get fat, too. I mean, who needs it? I don't. No thanks. Why do people get like that when they get married?
Patty Rocks is a $350,000 production. That compares to Hollywood hits and bombs costing $30, $40, or $50 million. But Morris and Cummins say Hollywood is also movie-making by committee, which means compromise and following formulas. Cummins and Morris say it will be up to the smaller filmmakers to break the new ground, making movies about what is important and real rather than Graveyard Nightmare, Part 5.
Forget the car chases, forget all the junk, forget the gratuitous nudity and da-da-da-da. Make something that's interesting, make something they wouldn't want to make.
Steve Goodspeed, Channel 9 News, the Twin Cities.
And it was local film experts who lit and helped design the latest exhibit at the Science Museum of Minnesota. But the props came from Hollywood. Special Effects opens tomorrow, and as Fritzy Borgert reports, it's about movie magic.
It's ever-increasing technology and the whole idea of making you think you're someplace where you can't possibly be. That's exciting.
Are you all set?
Exciting for school children, too, who were invited to hear the Masters of Illusion and to preview the Science Museum's latest exhibit.
Yucky. Scary.
They are the actual figures used in the movie Aliens.
She looks like she's very real and very solid, and so does the power loader. But what they actually are a series of foam molds. And if you pick them up, they're actually very light. There was actually a stunt guy, a former Mr. Olympus, behind her, operating her arms.
The alien was adjusted slightly for each frame of film to create the illusion of movement, an illusion the California Raisins know well. And if you saw Ghostbusters, you may wonder how this happened. Let's look again in slow motion.
Shot the scene with the actors there, then shot the scene with the actors not there, and by means of splits and mats, we then composited the scene together from all those elements later.
That dog is skeletonized for us in the museum's exhibit. There are familiar faces, and what made them work. Even Norman Bates's mother is on display. Some studios were eager to share their secrets, some weren't. They are protective of their illusions and the reality they transform.
It's a transformer!
Like the movies it honors, the exhibit was not cheap. It cost $750,000, and it'll be playing at the Science Museum through May 1st.
Changing into
A gigantic
maid.
Fritzy Borgwart, Channel 9 News, St. Paul.
Pete, ship 20 pounds of smoked Polish sausage to Stan Lenski in Warsaw. Stretch, 30 pounds of Swiss wurst to Zurich. Rush the smoked Italia to Rome.
Got it.
We get requests from all over for our plump, delicious smoked sausages. But you don't have to go through all that trouble because Johnsonville smoked sausages are in your favorite food store. Try some. You will love them.
And send all this smoked bratwurst to Frankfurt for my grandma. They can't get the good stuff over there.
At LensCrafters, skilled laboratory technicians using the latest equipment mean we can custom grind your exact prescription in about 1 hour. Listen.
They put new lenses in my old frames in about 55 minutes.
They were able to make a tool that's required to make my glasses.
I got my glasses in 47 minutes.
Very professional people.
LensCrafters, quality eyeglasses in about an hour. Burnsville Center, Southdale Center, Loman's Plaza, and now in Crystal Shopping Center, next to Target.
Weeknights at 10, make a love connection.
He simply does not own me, and he should not have had that attitude.
But you probably don't want another day with Jeff.
And at 10:35, look in on the Jeffersons.
Good, he ain't here. Who? Bentley. You called? Maybe the band will play our song tonight, huh?
Your song? You mean the theme from The Beauty and the Beast?
Weeknights are a scream with Love Connection at 10 and the Jeffersons at 10:35 on Receptive Channel 9.
You know, I've always loved Dairy Queen hot dogs, ever since I was back in Philly. And now you can get the DQ Hounder in a Basket, a plump, juicy quarter-pound hot dog with fries. Top one off just the way you like it. Find out why nobody sells more hot dogs than Dairy Queen. An American original.
The DQ Hounder Basket Deal with soft drink, now $1.69.
As you may know, the Twin Cities is making a bid for the 1996 Olympic Games. The United States Olympic Committee has until April to choose an American city to represent the U.S. Today at a news conference, city leaders said the mayors of Minneapolis and St. Paul and a contingent of corporate representatives will travel to Calgary next week to lobby for the Twin City site.
We're pretty good here. We got it. And we just have to recognize it ourselves. I think it's a little of us coming out of our runner-up mentality, that we're not runners-up anymore. I think if we start seeing ourselves as winners and that we have the facilities, I think there's a very good case, and we have to communicate that.
Minneapolis-St. Paul is competing against Atlanta, Nashville, and San Francisco to represent the U.S. Organizers say the recent success of the Twins, the Vikings, and the NBA basketball franchise have all helped to heighten our appeal. Well, in sports, an era of professional sports is coming to an end tonight. After 25 years, professional wrestling at the Minneapolis Auditorium will soon be no more.
The building is going to be torn down to make room for a new convention center, and tonight legends of wrestling have returned for a grand finale.
And reporter Kevin Burns is among those in attendance there tonight. He joins us now live. Kevin?
Rod and Heather, it almost brings a tear to my eye to realize that this is the last time that All-Star Wrestling will be held in this fabulous building. I'll tell you, a great crowd is on hand here tonight for what, as you said, is really an end of an era. This building is filled with so many memories. The Indian death strap matches of Wahoo McDaniel, the ruthlessness of the Vachon brothers, and of course the Gagne sleeper hold. Now earlier I spoke with some legends of the sport about wrestling and about its fans.
What makes a good wrestling fan is one that likes the sport. He watches it on TV. He would rather watch wrestling on TV than anything else.
They seem to demand more action. They don't really care about the technical parts of wrestling, which we feel, in the AWA at least, is an integral part of the sport.
We don't give ourselves these names. It's the people. They tag these names or some promoter. I mean, if you think I'd name myself Hardboiled Haggard, I'd name myself Handsome Hag or something like that.
Now you can get in the gym, do some weightlifting, get yourself a costume, and run in the ring, and in some case the public is buying that, and they're being fooled. We don't fool them. I mean, in the AWA, you've got to wrestle.
The guy had passed me and made an obscene gesture at me, so I chased him down the street and I punched out his windows with my fists. And of course, when I came to wrestle that night, my hands were all bandaged up and cut, and I told Wally Carbo, the promoter at the time, that a dog had attacked me.
I had a bone broken in my foot one time when I was wrestling in Dallas, Texas. And I think I hold a distinct honor of being the only wrestler in the annals of wrestling history to be carried into the ring instead of out.
With the Hag with his bald head sticking through the ropes choking me, this man, you know, it was a great target, that bald head, and he picked up a chair and let him have it, and the riot was on.
Boy, I tell you, we got a ride on our hands tonight. The headliner of the card, the cage match between Kurt Hennig and Greg Gagne. That's right, this steel cage, one way in, one way out. This padlock, and only the ref has got the key. What an exciting way to end this era of professional wrestling. But wrestling fans, don't be disappointed. All-Star Wrestling will be going to another location in the Twin Cities. This isn't the last event of the Minneapolis Auditorium either, Rod and Heather. We should tell you, February 26th, Marie Osmond will hold the final event here. But I have to tell you, it'll probably be a little bit different crowd for the Marie Osmond concert than All-Star Wrestling. We'll throw it back to you.
Okay, thank you, Kevin. That is the main event going on right now. Okay, thanks very much.
Oh, boy. Well, coming up next in sports, it's underdog status for the North Stars and Gopher basketball team.
And is it too early to start talking baseball? Well, not when you're speaking with one of the legends of the game. Perry is next. Stay with us.
Even as America's elderly population grows more and more, some people in government want to help less and less by cutting back on care for our most vulnerable citizens.
Some water. I need my...
Is cutting vital public services the way to run our country? There are answers, but it means asking more of our government, not less.
I wish someone would help me.
America, it's time for new priorities.
This is Hawaii, paradise found.
Aloha, I'm Ed Hogan, owner of Pleasant Hawaiian Holidays, where we make paradise affordable. This is Pleasant's low price for a full week in Waikiki. It includes airfare and hotel, and all the paradise you can handle. Stop dreaming and start packing. Pleasant Hawaiian Holidays makes paradise affordable.
Well, the same problem for the North Stars tonight, just no offense
Can't
again.
get that puck in the net for about the 4th straight game. Dino Cicerelli was back from a 10-game suspension. He was no help either. For the 3rd straight night, North Stars were shut out, this time by ex-Gopher goalie Frank Pietrangelo, now with the Pittsburgh Penguins. Herb Brooks wondering when the offense will get going. 1 goal in the last 3 games. The only score of the game halfway through the 1st period, actually 1 goal in the last 4. And here it is, Doug Bodger, 7th of the year on the power play. And that was all Frank Pietrangelo needed. Frank, with his first shutout of the NHL career, he got a few lucky bounces, like this one off the pipe, but he sparkled, stopping 31 shots as the Penguins held on to beat the North Stars tonight. The final 1-0. The Stars playing Winnipeg Saturday night at the Met Center before breaking for the NHL All-Star game. Boston over Montreal tonight, 7-3 that final. Quebec over the Rangers 3-2. Philadelphia beats Toronto 6-1. It's on to Wisconsin for the Gopher hockey team. 2 wins over the Badgers would clinch the WCHA title for Minnesota. The Gophers missing 2 players. Junior forwards Marty Nanny and Chris May have left the team for lack of playing time, although head coach Doug Woog says the door is open for their return. Well, the Gopher basketball team traveled to Indiana tonight, and they were quickly whipped by the Hoosiers 92-63. Bobby Knight and his boys controlled from start to finish. Joe Hillman, a career high for him tonight. 17 points, most on the inside, as they built a 20-point lead on that hoop, 45-25. Dean Garrett inside here as well. He had 19 points. He was benched for a couple games, came back tonight in the big way. Willie Burton once again leading the Gophers tonight. He had 17 points, including on a jumper here, but their leading scorer of the season, Mel Newbern, held scoreless tonight, and Clem Haskins says, let's get going, boys, but keep Smart and the Hoosiers too much. The dipsy doodle inside for Smart. He had 15 on the night. Balanced scoring for the Hoosiers. They win at 92-63. Illinois loses again to Ohio State as Buckeyes rally to beat the Illini, and Michigan State by 1 over Northwestern. The NBA heading into its All-Star break, the game Sunday in Chicago, but today the focus was on the stars of yesterday. 4 players elected into the Basketball Hall of Fame: Springfield, Mass. Ex-Washington Bullet player, now head coach Wes Unseld, Oregon State head coach Ralph Miller, Kansas Olympic and NBA star Clyde Lavalette, and the late Bobby McDermott, a pre-NBA standout in the 30s and 40s. Dr. J. Julius Erving, a future Hall of Famer, retiring last year, but now enjoying life in the business world. About the only time he has for basketball is in his office, mini style.
I would rather deal with the present and the future, you know, because, you know, I think that's more exciting and it's more purposeful, and it's just the way that things should be. Young by some standards, old, obviously, by athletic standards, but not worried about it. Not worried. It's not a time to worry.
Dr. J. One of the top tennis tournaments to come to this area is underway in full force. The Rolex National Indoor Championships, opening round matches today at the 98th Street Racket Club in Bloomington. Top male and female collegiate players across the country competing. Women's singles, Susanna Nude of Brigham Young serving here, facing the #1 seed, and Grossbeck of the University of Texas. No easy match for the favorite. The players went to the tiebreak first set before Grossbeck won it, then took the match by winning the second set 7-5. Anne's experience helping out. She was a semifinalist in the indoor tournament last year. Also advancing today was Ginger Helgeson, the former Edina High School star, now at Pepperdine University. But bad news for Gopher players. Ann Gordy and Jonas Svensson both coming up short in single matches. The tournament continues. Singles and doubles at 98th Street tomorrow, then moving to the Crosstown Racket Club Saturday and Sunday in Eden Prairie. The Minnesota Strikers getting ready for a first-place showdown with Cleveland tomorrow night at the Met Center. The Strikers trailing the Force by only 1 game in the Eastern Division. Afterwards, there's a special celebrity football game. The Twins getting some good news tonight. Relief pitcher Jeff Reardon will be back, dropping his demand to be traded. Reardon was the key reason why the Twins won the World Series. Jeff says he's looking forward to spring training, which starts in 2 weeks in Orlando. The other news today, the Twins signing ex-Montreal pitcher Charlie Lee to a contract. He's had arm problems the last 3 years. Well, if you want longevity in baseball, try Houston pitcher Nolan Ryan, who talked with our Jim Gilliland today.
If ever there was an example of a gifted athlete exhibiting both excellence and durability, it is Nolan Ryan. who at age 40 won the National League Strikeout Championship last year with 270, bringing his career total to an astounding 4,277. What better person to talk about what it takes to get in shape? Still a trim 195 pounds on his 6'2" frame, Ryan is in town to help the weekend athlete with some fitness guidelines.
I know with me personally that I have to work harder now, and I have to watch what I eat, and I think each year it's harder to maintain what I consider my playing weight.
The bionic Ryan can do some other things besides throw the ball, so it's not just a question of getting his arm in shape. He works on the whole package.
You're always striving to improve, and so I go to spring training trying to improve my game and work on aspects of my game that I think that need improvement, and the physical conditioning part of it is the part that probably takes some more time now than it used to because of my age.
The Twins just played a World Series, and you've played in a World Series, so you know what a thrill it is, but you haven't been there since 1969. Is that still a big goal of yours before you finish, is to get back to the World Series?
That was a goal of mine when I came to the Houston Astros, and we've been close twice but haven't made it, and it's certainly still one of my goals. And
if you would like a copy of Ryan's brochure, send a stamped, self-addressed envelope to the Beef Industry Council, Department WA, 444 North Michigan Avenue, Chicago, 60611. Jim Gilliland, Channel 9 Sports.
It's amazing how fast he can still throw that baseball. It's unbelievable.
At the touch.
At age 40. Yeah. Happy birthday.
Happy birthday, Rod.
Thank you.
We couldn't resist it.
It's when you start lying about your age is about right now, isn't it?
Don't ask me.
A final look at our bitterly cold weather right after this.